At the end of 1999, humanity stood trembling on the edge of a cliff we built ourselves. A cliff made out of spreadsheets, beige plastic, and a suspicious amount of blind confidence. For thousands of years, people feared comets, plagues, vengeful gods. But now, we were afraid of the number 2000.
I'm freaking out, man. You are freaking out, man.
A 4-digit sequence from the depths of hell that apparently held more existential power than any deity we ever invented. This was the great prophecy of our time, that when the clock struck midnight, the entire digital world would forget what year it was, and civilization would eat shit like a poorly balanced Jenga tower. Planes would drop from the skies, banks would implode, and microwaves would develop sentience and overthrow their owners. Or at least, that's what everyone insisted might happen. What actually happened was far simpler and much more embarrassing. We looked at our own machines, the shiny symbols of progress we spent decades worshipping, and collectively decided they were going to yeet us into oblivion. The panic wasn't about computers failing. It was about giving mass stupidity a countdown timer. It was boredom dolled up as prophecy, anxiety wearing a digital mask, a civilization desperate for meaning, even if that meaning came in the form of a global software-induced apocalypse. This is the night the world prepared to die of math. This is Y2K, the final countdown. The Y2K bug is usually explained like a bedtime story written by an engineer. Once upon a time, in the early days of computers, programmers saved a tiny bit of digital memory by shortening the numerical year, and in return, the world almost ended. It's tidy, convenient, and lets everyone pretend that the problem lives inside the machines. But the real glitch wasn't electrical, it was psychological. Computers, for all their flaws, don't panic, they don't spiral or catastrophize, or stare blankly into the void wondering if they remembered to pay their subscription services. Computers do exactly what they're told, which is arguably more than can be said for the species that built them. The tech problem behind Y2K was real. Irritating, yes, but solvable. Annoying enough to require budget meetings, but not dramatic enough to justify stockpiling canned beans like a doomsday raccoon. It was the kind of issue grown adults can handle without the need for prophecy or ritual cleansing. And yet, instead of treating it like any other technical hiccup, society transformed it into a myth, a grand narrative of a digital Ragnarok.
We can still save Earth. People are sure to clean up their act when presented with cold, hard facts by rational folks like us. The end is near. Repent thy sins.
People didn't fear the computers breaking. They feared what it meant. Because nothing terrifies humanity more than the idea that machines we worship might be as fragile as we are. So, Y2K became a vessel, a socially acceptable panic attack wearing a thin shell of circuitry, a chance for everyone to project their own unsolved dread, economic anxiety, and general dissatisfaction with existence onto something programmable.
Y2K, perfect example of how the press hypes everything to no end and nothing happens.
Well, we know that now, Frank, but back then we were pretty scared.
For once, the world had a catastrophe that was both inevitable and convenient. Catastrophic enough to justify panic, but vague enough that no one could say you were wrong. The story wasn't a computer might misread the date. The story was the future might betray us. And it was that kind of apocalypse people could really get behind. Because if there's one thing humanity excels at, it's transforming mundane problems into omens and calling it preparation.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go build my own
Doomsday Bunker.
with blackjack and hookers. In fact, forget the
Doomsday Bunker.
Before we go any further, it is important to understand that Y2K wasn't just a computer bug, it was a vibe. An entire cultural mood board crafted from static electricity, chrome gradients, and a vague sense that technology was both our salvation and our executioner.
Oh, come on, run it again! You're a $500 million supercomputer!
What do we do? What do I say? Just say something. We're gonna lose the money. Updating iTunes.
The late 90s were a paradox, a techno-utopia meth binge tangled with a techno-dystopian hangover. We believed the future would be incredible, but also that it might murder us in our sleep. This was an era when the internet was still magical. Computers made little chime noises that felt like stepping into another universe. Every commercial promised a sleek, cybernetic tomorrow where everything was smart, except for the people using it. We treated the digital world like a new Eden, but one that definitely had snakes.
Fucking Windows 98! Get Bill Gates in here! You told us Windows 98 would be faster and more efficient with better access to the internet!
It is faster, over 5 million.
And then there was the other side. The spiritual panic, the moral paranoia, the religious hand-wringing. An entire generation grew up being told that both Microsoft and the devil were trying to hack their souls. Every school assembly warned that the internet was basically a haunted house full of predators, viruses, and chat rooms where demons probably lived. Technology was presented as miraculous and cursed, like a burning bush that played dial-up sounds. The cultural dissonance was absurd. Cyber optimism collided headfirst with economic insecurity, and instead of trying to reconcile that contradiction, society just shrugged and said, "Yeah, this seems normal." Everything felt futuristic, but nobody trusted the future. We were trapped between glossy sci-fi hope and the creeping suspicion that humanity wasn't quite qualified to operate a VCR, let alone an entire digital civilization.
I have no idea what I'm doing, but I know I'm doing it really, really well.
And of course, futurism was marketed like a soda commercial. Every product was extreme or 2000 or cyber something, as if slapping neon colors and circuit board patterns onto a toaster somehow made it a spacecraft. The future wasn't arriving, it was being sold, one Mountain Dew ad at a time. So people did what humans always do when confronted with a new god. They worshipped it, feared it, misunderstood it, and immediately assumed it would smite them.
I am the Metal Lord. Who are you?
I am called Malachi, Lord. It means, he who really loves the Metal Lord.
Y2K wasn't the moment we realized computers might break. It was the moment we realized that we had built a techno-religion, and deep down, we were terrified that our digital deity might be every bit as unstable, moody, and poorly programmed as the species that created it.
Ow. I need a calculator.
You are a calculator.
I mean a good calculator.
The media loves to pretend that they were innocent bystanders during Y2K. Humble messengers delivering sober, level-headed updates about a potential digital oopsie. In reality, they treated Y2K the way a bloodthirsty wolf treats an unattended toddler.
Yeah, but why were we so scared? Well, Dee got us all worked up about the computers taking over mankind, and then she had us build this bunker.
Yeah, Robopocalypse. Machines communicating with each other and conspiring to destroy the human race.
That is complete nonsense.
This wasn't journalism, it was enrichment for a bored society that desperately wanted something fucked up to happen. For years, the 90s had been stable, comfortable, and painfully mundane. The Cold War was over. The economy was inflated with artificial optimism, and everybody was too busy buying Tamagotchis and Discmen to notice their own creeping sense of existential dread.
You know what I feel like talking about today? Fear-mongering.
So Y2K became the perfect emotional pressure valve. A safe, socially acceptable outlet for a universal human instinct to panic. A collective LARP where everyone agreed to pretend the world might end, but also agreed to do it at 11 p.m. between commercial breaks. The news didn't just report on the fear, they curated it. They shaped it into a product. They packaged it with dramatic music steams, spinning 3D logos, and that special tone reporters use when they're trying to sound serious about something they absolutely don't understand.
We didn't listen!
Stan, get in the car! We have to evacuate!
We didn't listen!
We didn't listen! We didn't listen!
Every segment became a miniature morality play. A countdown to possible doom, narrated by people who clearly hoped the lights would flicker just so that they could say, "We told you so." Y2K was less a crisis and more a shitty performance. A communal fantasy where we finally got to indulge the suspicion that the world might fall apart without any of the actual consequences. The media didn't inform the public, they gave the public permission. Permission to worry, to freak the fuck out, to imagine a simpler, more dramatic ending than the slow, directionless drift down a piss river we were actually living through. Bottom line, the news didn't exploit Y2K, they amplified it. Because for some weird reason, everyone wanted the drama. And nothing fuels ratings like a civilization quietly hoping for an apocalypse that won't inconvenience them too much.
It is my professional opinion that now is the time to panic!
One of the greatest overlooked chapters of Y2K is that it wasn't just a cultural event or a technological hiccup. It was a booming industry. A marketplace built on the promise that the world might collapse and that you could buy your way to safety if you had enough room on your credit card. While most people were nervously counting down to midnight, a select group of consultants were having the best years of their lives. These were the prophets of the digital collapse. Men in pleated khakis who could walk into a boardroom, whisper your entire company might explode because of the date field, and walk out with a check big enough to fix their own existential dread. They became the high priests of apocalypse prevention, and they billed by the hour. Then there were the survivalists. Entire cottage industries sprang up overnight to monetize the fantasy that civilization could implode at the stroke of midnight. Prepper catalogs exploded with enthusiasm. If you needed a bucket of freeze-dried beef stroganoff that could outlive every friend you've ever had, Y2K was your golden age.
It's 2 a.m., January 1st, year 2000. Power's out. It's pitch black. You need light. If you planned ahead, you'll have one of these. Just wind it up. You'll have light and communication. Call now and get the ultimate Y2K survival kit from...
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Business was booming because fear, unlike canned goods, never expires. And corporations were enthusiastic participants. They helped spread panic, then very helpfully offered a solution for the panic they just caused.
We should get our supplies before they sell out.
Yeah, for sure. You know, we should come up with a plan and we should divide up.
Right, all right, we gotta get the supplies, head up to the Poconos ASAP.
Come on.
I don't know. I mean, let's think about this. I mean, for all we know, it could be the end of days.
No, it's not the end of days. Guys, it's not the end of days, okay? We'll get some batteries, we'll get some supplies.
Food. We'll get food.
Yeah, we'll get food.
Well, okay, but I feel like you didn't say food.
Yeah, we'll get food, okay?
Jesus Christ.
Relax. Okay, yeah, I'm getting crazy.
Yeah.
All right, I'll get the food.
Yeah.
Oh my God. You guys get the supplies.
Okay, we'll get the supplies.
Okay.
If your software might fail, they had the upgrade. If your infrastructure might collapse, they had the patch. If your emotional stability was wavering, they had a limited edition product lined in futuristic teal packaging that somehow made you feel prepared. This was apocalypse as an economic service model. Fear, but customer-friendly. Doom, but with a mail-in rebate. Every sector found their way to cash in. Banks, tech firms, consultants, hardware manufacturers, everyone got a slice. Y2K became the first modern demonstration that uncertainty isn't a crisis, it's a revenue stream. Because when the world is ending, the free market says, fantastic, what size panic kit would you like?
There, fixed forever.
He's gonna die the way he lived. Oh, marmalade.
The funny thing about Y2K is that everyone remembers the panic, but almost nobody talks about the existential hangover that came after. Because yes, the clock struck midnight, the lights stayed on, and the world continued spinning with all the enthusiasm of a bored office worker. But the real impact wasn't the disaster that didn't happen. It was the collective emotional whiplash of preparing for the apocalypse and then being denied even the courtesy of a good story.
Yeah, I guess that's pretty cool. You're disappointed. You wanted it to destroy the world, didn't you? It's a little anticlimactic, you have to admit. All that buildup for nothing?
People stocked bunkers, prayed, panicked, and practiced the art of pretending they understood computers. And at midnight, the universe politely refused to validate any of it.
Don't do it to me. I beg you. No.
It's hard to get more humiliating than losing an argument with time itself. This wasn't relief. This was something more uncomfortable. The realization that all our fears, all our preparation, and all our frantic energy had nowhere to go. The abyss didn't stare back. It barely looked up from its book.
I don't really feel like it.
And in a way, that was more disturbing than if everything had exploded. If the world had ended, or even mildly inconvenienced us, it would have meant that we were right. It would have meant the anxiety had a purpose. It would have given the whole ordeal a narrative arc. Humanity confronts its digital sins, suffers the consequence, learns lessons, then fade to black. Instead, we were left with absolutely nothing. No lesson, no catharsis, no cosmic meaning, just a silent cosmic shrug. The kind that says, you built an entire mythology around a calendar rollover, and that's on you.
Fuck me, right?
The aftermath of Y2K wasn't triumph. It was embarrassment disguised as relief. A global awkward silence where millions of people mentally boxed up their survival kits and gently pretended they never owned it.
What? I gotta take a piss. I don't have any... You guys are... Huh?
It was the moment humanity realized they had spent billions of dollars and millions of hours preparing for a catastrophe that, frankly, had better things to do. And that anticlimax, that absolute void of payoff, was the true legacy of Y2K. Not the panic, but the hollow quiet after. A reminder that sometimes the universe doesn't punish our mistakes, it just ignores them.
I fucking knew it! Oh!
In hindsight, Y2K wasn't a catastrophe. It was a rehearsal. A dress rehearsal for every tech panic that would define the next 20 years. It was the moment humanity learned that you don't need demons, conspiracies, or ancient curses to terrify people. You just need a blinking cursor and a vague suggestion that it might be haunted. Y2K was the proto-version of everything that came after. QAnon, AI doomers, space filter identity crises, crypto cults, deepfake moral panics. All beautifully observed modern anxiety that convinced us the digital world is plotting something dramatic. It taught us that if you want to wrap fear in enough circuitry, people would treat it like a prophecy. And in that sense, Y2K was our first digital ghost story, a cultural exorcism cosplaying as a software glitch, a chance for society to purge its shitty insecurities about the future by projecting them onto machines that never asked to shoulder the burden in the first place. We didn't just debug our computers, we tried to debug our collective psyche and called it a public service. And like any good ghost story, the details fade, but the feelings linger. The suspicion that the digital world is bigger, stranger, and more fragile than we want to believe. Y2K didn't end anything. It opened a door to an era where every new technology carries a shadow, and every shadow carries a warning. Y2K wasn't the end of the world. It was the pilot episode for every panic that came after. Proof that humans will fear anything as long as it gives them a dramatic reason to feel alive. If you enjoyed watching society nearly collapse because they couldn't count properly, go ahead and like the video. Consider it your contribution to the ongoing effect of keeping the algorithm from launching its own apocalypse. Subscribe if you'd like to stay updated on future investigations or just shit I find interesting. And if you somehow missed it, check out my deep dive into culture. A trip through 90s Japan where fashion, rebellion, and moral panic combined into something far more chaotic than a date field rollover ever was.